Welcome to Facts TV News, where everything is true. 5 shot dead, 7 guns seized by law enforcers in Augustown. 5 men were killed and 7 firearms seized in a joint police-military operation in Bedward Gardens, Augustown, St. Andrew on Wednesday, beginning at about 4 a.m. A soldier was also reportedly injured in the operation. Head of the Police Information Arm, the Corporate Communication Unit CCU, Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay, confirmed the shooting. 5 men were killed and 7 firearms seized. The police-military operation is ongoing. They are still out in the field, still in combat, SSP Lindsay reported. One of the deceased men has been identified as Colin Mignos Sr., otherwise called Peng, the reputed leader of the Berry Gang, who is wanted for several cases of shooting at the police. The other men are O'Neill Dixon, 24, Delani Palmer, 22, Tafari Johnny Dell, 22, and Akeem Tello McLean, 20. All the men were persons of interest for a number of crimes that were committed in the Bedward Gardens area. The Joint Military Police Team is still searching for a man known as Boom. The law enforcers found high-powered weapons, submachine guns, pistols, and assorted ammunition, as well as cell phones. The Bedward Gardens area is defined by hilly terrain with dense vegetation, which is an attractive location for gangs. The operation was a joint effort between St. Andrews Central Police Division and the Jamaica Defense Force. Residents said that early morning operation may have caught the gunmen off guard. It seems like the soldiers catch the young boy them asleep, and by the time them wake up, the soldiers them already corral the hill. Right now, the rain a fall and the soldiers them are run off of the road. One body come out of the hill already, but the rest of the bodies don't come down yet. People are say a 7 gun them fine, one resident stated. There has been an ongoing feud between the Jungle 12 and River communities, which has intensified over several weeks. A video which was circulated widely on social media last week showed the dead body of a man from Jungle 12 who had been shot by a police officer in Princess Street in Dongston, Kingston, in response to a gun attack in the area. That man was suspected to have been among the group of men who shot another man, a resident of River, who had been selling pillows in downtown Kingston. Bruce Golding and wife Lorna receive COVID-19 vaccinations. Former Prime Minister Bruce Golding and wife Lorna received their COVID-19 vaccinations on Wednesday in a demonstration intended to encourage Jamaicans to get jab against the deadly disease. The procedure was simple, straightforward, and virtually painless, the former Prime Minister, 73 years old, said at a press conference after the inoculation process. It involves less stress than when you go to your doctor for an examination, he added. Jamaica is administering its first coronavirus vaccinations Wednesday, 2 days after the first batch of vaccines arrived in the island. The rollout began mostly with healthcare workers, but Golding and fellow Prime Minister P.J. Patterson were asked to receive their shots on the day in a bid to raise confidence among Jamaicans, many of whom are hesitant over getting the jab. I want to thank the Minister of Health, Dr. Christopher Tufton, for making arrangements for me. He knew I would have waited my term, but he thought it was important for us who have served to set an example, Golding explained. Golding said, as a member of the vulnerable community, he has been using technology to keep in touch with loved ones. He also encouraged Jamaicans to adhere to the health protocols. 16-year-old indisciplined gangster shot dead in Rosetown. A 16-year-old boy, allegedly linked to the indisciplined gang, died of gunshot wounds following a shootout between the police and gunmen in Rosetown, Kingston on Tuesday. The deceased has been identified as Jamari Thomas. Police reports are that sometime after 12 a.m., a team of officers were on patrol in the area when they came under gunfire from armed men. The police reportedly took evasive action and returned fire, leading to a shootout. Shortly after the shooting subsided, Thomas was found with bullet wounds. He was taken to the hospital where he later died. The indisciplined gang operates out of the Rosetown community, the police disclosed. Investigations into the shooting incident are ongoing. COVID-19 in Jamaica 1 year later. Jamaica began its COVID-19 vaccination rollout on Wednesday, March 10, exactly 1 year to the date that the country confirmed its first case of the coronavirus. Healthcare workers are first in line to receive what is being hailed as the life-saving jab that was developed in record time. Jamaica's first 50,000 doses, a gift from fellow Commonwealth member state India, arrived in the island less than 48 hours ago. In the ensuing year, since the coronavirus that first originated in Wuhan province, China in the late 2019 breached Jamaica's borders, there has been 27,465 infections and 460 deaths. During that time, more than 100,000 jobs were lost and every sector of the economy battered. It took 4 years between 2016 and 2020 for the Jamaican economy to add 100,000 jobs, and in 4 months of the COVID-19 pandemic, over 13,000 jobs were lost. The Jamaicans who lost jobs during the pandemic could fill every seat in the National Stadium 4 times over, said Finance and Public Service Minister Dr. Nigel Clark on Tuesday as he opened the 2021-22 budget debate at Gardner House. Clark also stated that the economy shrunk some 10% in 2020 due to the ravages of COVID-19 pandemic, the worst economic contraction in the country's history. No previous economic decline comes even remotely close, he told the House. The biggest declines previously suffered by the local economy were 6.5% in 1975 and 5.7% in 1980. None of these was remotely close to the economic contraction that we have all lived through in 2020, Clark said, while pointing out that decline was driven by a massive 70% contraction in the tourism industry, the worst in 30 years. Prior to the first confirmed case of COVID-19 on the island, the authorities and administration at the University Hospital of the West Indies were forced on more than one occasion, beginning in early February last year, to quell rumors that infected persons were at the hospital. Jamaica's first confirmed case of COVID-19 was in patient 0, a Jamaican with dual United Kingdom citizenship who had flown back to the island on March 4 last year to attend a funeral. The Bull Bay St. Andrew resident unwittingly infected several other contacted, including her father. She was quickly isolated and contact tracing ramped up on a scale not before seen in Jamaica. The Bull Bay community was also the first to be placed under quarantine. That was for an initial 2 weeks and a clear signal of things to come. On the same day, the Jamaica recorded its first case of COVID-19. The Andrew Holness-led administration imposed travel restrictions on 3 European countries, Spain, France, and Germany. That brought to 8 the number of countries on the list. The previous 5 were China, Italy, South Korea, Singapore, and Iran. The UK would soon join that list. By March 11, when Jamaica confirmed its second case of COVID-19, the finance minister announced that up to $7 billion in contingency funds would be committed to the coronavirus fight if that need arose. That figure would eventually swell to $40 billion, the largest social security net program in the country's history, which benefited nearly 500,000 Jamaicans. While the so-called patient 0 eventually recovered, Jamaica recorded its first fatality as a result of the coronavirus in March. The victim was a 79-year-old man with a travel history from the United States. 6 of his close contacts later tested positive for the virus. The community of Corn Peace in Hayes, Clarendon, where the man resides, became the second community to be placed under quarantine. Over time, communities in St. Thomas that were experiencing an outbreak of COVID-19 were also placed under quarantine, and special curfews were imposed in Manchester and Westmoreland when their numbers soared. The spotlight would soon turn on St. Catherine, the parish with the most infections after Kingston and St. Andrew. This, when an outbreak of the disease among more than 200 employees of the Portmore-based Alorica call center last April eventually led to a 17-day lockdown of the entire parish. During that time, only workers in the essential services and persons visiting their doctor were allowed to leave. The restrictive measures, including limits on public gathering, stay-at-home orders, the closure of bars, restaurants, clubs, parks and zoos, and even rivers and beaches, and the curtailment of church services appear to have been the desired effect, as there was no sharp increases in COVID-19 cases or deaths over several months. In fact, up to the first week in August, Jamaica had recorded fewer than 1,000 infections and under 200 deaths. However, job losses soared and the bottom kept falling out of the economy as the tourist industry, Jamaica's second largest earner of foreign exchange after remittance, was effectively shuttered. Jamaica would close its borders to the rest of the world on March 24 at 11:59 p.m., not reopening them until June when the first Jamaicans overseas were allowed back home. The closure of the borders worsened the economic crisis for the tourist-dependent nation, and tourism workers reeled for its effect. And the impact on the nation's children, thousands of whom have not had access to an education since schools were shuttered on March 13 last year and classes moved online, will not be fully known for years. With cases surging since February this year and with hospitals at capacity and healthcare workers stressed, the Prime Minister has warned that a lockdown of the entire country is yet possible. Up to Monday, March 8, 2021, Jamaica had recorded more than 27,000 COVID-19 infections and 460 deaths. While the number of infections are surging, reaching more than 800 cases in a single day last weekend, the death rate is still considered relatively low when compared to some countries. However, the number of persons needing to be hospitalized is increasing, presenting a major worry for the authorities as hospital beds are now fully booked. Hundreds of families continue to mourn their loved ones. Among the Jamaicans who have succumbed to the disease are Reggae Island Toots Hibbert and former firebrand politician in the PNP's party, Dr. D.K. Duncan. Also losing their battle with COVID-19 are Vice Principal of Kingston College, Juliet Wilson, and Sam Clayton Jr., one of the members of the iconic Jamaican Bolster squad at the 1988 Winter Olympic in Calgary. Clayton was also an accomplished sound engineer who toured extensively with Steel Pulse. Olympian Usain Bolt also contracted the coronavirus, so too Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson and hundreds of police personnel. Of note is that Jamaica experienced its first spike in COVID-19 cases around the Emancipendence holiday period between August 1 and 6. A second spike accompanied nomination day activities in August and campaigning for the September 3rd general election. Jamaica is now experiencing a surge which began towards the end of January and has continued into March. As fatigue sets in, and with people increasingly defiant, thousands of Jamaicans have been arrested for various breaches of the health protocols that are being enforced under the Disaster Risk Management Act. A ticketing system that would see violators issued with a ticket rather than being arrested is being developed. In the meantime, with multiple hundreds of cases being confirmed each day, and with the 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew and other measures such as limits on public gathering and a present ban on funeral, Jamaicans fret that a full lockdown is on the horizon. This, as health experts and scientists warn that even with a vaccine, COVID-19 will be around for much of 2021 and even into the next year. Meanwhile, the country's response to the COVID-19 pandemic is ably led by Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton. The thousands of healthcare workers across the island and the team of the Health Ministry that is led by Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jacqueline McKenzie. The pervasive nature of the severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2, or COVID-19 has resulted in more than 118 million infections and over 2.6 million deaths worldwide. Some countries have managed it better than others. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and click the notification bell for daily updates.